Hello, so we're going to have a look at some techniques we can use in the exam to make the exam a little bit easier. So we'll be looking at things such as annotating figures, using dual coding on the questions, and crossing out any words that we don't 100% understand and still trying to answer the question. First thing, always draw a compass on the front of your exam paper. Alright, you're not going to get in trouble for doing it, and it will just remind you that you need to use compass direction in some of your answers. So this is the physical paper. This is from 2019. Now, questions like this, first question here, it says state what is meant by extreme weather. It just wants a definition. So if you see the word state or give, generally it just wants a simple definition. Question 2, again, you know, you need to choose one of these. My advice is, if you have got no idea, you're just going to have a guess. Because if you leave it completely blank, well, you're not going to get any marks at all. Okay, and the way we answer this is, I would go down. So, which one of these statements does not describe an extreme weather event? Shade one circle only. So, a snow blizzard in the Midlands, that seems extreme, so I'll put a little cross. A heat wave in the Lake District, that seems a bit extreme to me, so I'll put a cross. A tornado in the Isle of Wight, is it? I'll put a question mark there, I'm not 100% sure. And then a wet winter in Scotland, it's that one. It's always wet in winter during Scotland, so that's the way we answer it. Okay, go through process of elimination. If you got down to just 2 and you really couldn't decide, well, you're going to have to guess, but don't colour in more than 1. If you change your mind, so I think actually it's not D, you put a cross through it, and then you would colour in the one you think it is. If you change your mind again, put a cross through it and put a circle. Now, you know, if you change your mind again, you shouldn't really change your mind again, but if you could always do something like, to make it clear, this one, all right? But only do that if it really looks a mess, because you don't want to waste time. Next, again, you got a map. You know, you should know how to answer this because we've just done this one. But always use the figure. The figures are there, okay, to help you. They don't just do it to fill space. If it's there, it needs looking at. Okay, moving on. So, this has got a figure. Study figure 2. Information about extreme weather in the UK in March 2018. Now, this is our case study, so you should already be aware of this. So, you need to look through that, and you need to look through the figure, read it quickly, and then it says, suggest how extreme weather in the UK can have economic and social impacts. Now, use figure 2, so you've got to use the figure and your own understanding. What I would do is I'd be like, right, we know economic, we use a dollar sign, it's something to do with money. We know social is to do with people, so we use a stick person. And impacts, not always, but are generally bad. So now, if you know it wants to bad things to do with money and people, you can have a look through. So here we go, 1 billion per day. So you could write, an economic impact is that it costs the UK 1 billion per day. This means that, well, this money could be invested elsewhere, couldn't it? It could be invested in new schools or something. All right, it's going to damage the UK economy. If we look over here, red, risk to life. Well, that's a social impact, and we know a couple of people died during the beast from the east, sadly, because it was so cold. Okay, so that's how you can answer that question. Okay, next, love these questions. You have got a figure. Use figure 3, complete the following paragraph. Now again, you don't get a mark taken off if you get it wrong. If you're not sure of the answers, which I'm sure you will be, you can just have a guess as a last resort. Okay, next, give 2 reasons why tropical storms form in the areas shown in figure 3. Give. Doesn't want a massive explanation, just give the reasons. So sea temperature 27 degrees above, there's one reason straight off. Okay, next we have got a table of information, and it's about the most severe tropical storms in the past 50 years. So we can see we've got the storms down here, the names, the year, we've got the number of deaths and the wind speed. Okay, and it says as maximum wind speeds increase, so does the number of deaths linked to tropical storms. Do you agree? Well, I probably would start off by saying no, I do not agree, because straight off, Bangladesh 1970, 205 an hour, number of deaths 350,000. That's just the first example. Whereas if we look at Hurricane Allen, max wind speed, the deaths are 260. So it was 100 miles an hour, kilometers an hour faster, but only 260 deaths. So you would just say, I do not agree, because, and use data from the table. Okay, next question. So, this is an explain question. When we see the word explain, I would always say this means that. Put TMT there, so write a sentence and then put this means that. It will turn it into an explanation. Okay, so planting trees. Planting trees will reduce the rate of climate change because they absorb carbon dioxide, or they are a carbon sink. This means that there'll be less carbon in the atmosphere, less heat trapped, less global warming, less climate change. It changes it from a statement, a descriptive statement, to an explanation. Okay, here's a big one, and there will be this big one or a similar big one in your test. So we got two figures here. All right, it's about a tectonic hazard. In this case, it's an earthquake. Immediate responses, long-term responses. Okay, firstly, what can you see? Well, we got bottled water. That's useful if you're not got any clean water. It will keep you alive. The Red Cross, we got medicine. It could be antibiotics. It could be wound dressings, things like that. And we got rescue workers. So we've already got something we can write about. Longer term, well, if we look at these buildings, it's just construction. And we would hope that these buildings are earthquake proof. You know, learning from the lessons. If you look really closely down here, you can see some pipe work, and this is going to be for sanitation. So this is going to, you know, the new properties, they'll one be earthquake proof, and they will also get rid of waste products. So what's the question I want you to know? Long-term responses to a tectonic hazard are more important than immediate responses. Do you agree? Okay, so we're going to make a statement. Do you agree? I would always say agree to some extent. Okay, using figure 5, well, we need to write about in figure 5 what's in figure 5. So I'll put there as a hint in figure 5, use that in your answer. And then one or more examples, Haiti 2010 or Japan 2011, because those are our tectonic hazards. All right, explain, we've got to use this means that. So we've got loads of stuff to write about, but what about if A, you're running out of time, or B, you just don't get the question? Well, why not cross out long term and immediate? So responses to a tectonic hazard are more important than responses. Doesn't seem to make sense. Get rid of responses as well. Are more important. So responses to a tectonic hazard, even if you wrote a few sentences about, well, in Haiti, emergency rescue workers came from the UK and evacuated people, the search through the rubble, this was very important, you're going to pick up marks. Okay, so it wants you to talk about responses to a tectonic hazard. Now, if you really struggled, you know this is about hazards, you could cross it all out and just write about responses. Now, I ain't saying write about a tropical storm because it's not asking you, but if you did write about a tropical storm, such as Hurricane Katrina 2005, chances are you're going to pick up some marks. Not 9 plus 3, but you're going to pick up some marks. Okay, another thing, SPAG, full sentences, use your complex terminology such as social, economic, environmental, infrastructure. All right, capital letters, if you write about Haiti, use a capital letter. Easy marks. Okay. I'm not going to go through every single question because we'll be here all day. Let's have a look at this one. What does this one want us to do? So we've got to choose either hot deserts or cold environments. Now we know we don't study hot deserts, so we're going to do cold environments. We can do the same again. So to what extent are cold environments at risk from economic development and therefore in need of protection? To what extent? You're going to agree to some extent that cold environments are at risk from economic development and therefore in need of protection. So straight away, we know we've got to do something to some extent. Cold environments, our example could be Svalbard, or you might choose Alaska. Economic development, making money. So in here, I don't know, you might talk about TAP, the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline. This is super important because it creates jobs in the building and the operation of the oil pipeline. However, okay, it's built through Alaska, a wilderness area, and this could cause damage to the natural environment, especially if there's an oil spill. However, they have used technology to ensure that the damage is minimal. For example, if you remember, the pipeline is built on stilts. So the hot oil, which is about 48 degrees Celsius, does not melt the permafrost. Also, they've used technology, so if there's an earthquake, the pipe can sway. And finally, caribou, which are like reindeer, can walk underneath it. So yeah, they're in need of protection, but we can make money, we can develop economically, whilst also working in with the environment. Okay, so I mean, was there any other questions? Okay, explain how soft engineering strategies can help reduce the impact of river flooding. All right, remember, explain, TMT. So you're going to make a point and explain it. Now, soft engineering strategies, impact of river flooding. If I was struggling with what soft engineering meant, I'd potentially cross it out. What can we do to reduce the impact of river flooding? Okay, so we've got a river here flowing, and they've used floodplain zoning here. Okay, so the danger zone is pasture that animals can walk around freely and eat the grass on. Bit more important, we've got crops and playing fields, but not so important that people couldn't be moved out of there in an emergency. And finally, the settlements are built right at the top of the river valley, away from the risk of flooding. So, I mean, even if you didn't know that was called floodplain zoning, you could say, well, they built the houses a long way away from the river. This means that if the river flooded, there would be less economic damage. This means that, okay, the natural environment has not been damaged. They've worked with the environment. Okay. Super quick. Love these waterfall questions. You've got to look at the figure. What we got? We've got a big waterfall. We've got rapids. Explain how the landforms shown in figure 18 are created by physical processes. If you started off, I don't know what physical processes. Well, how's a waterfall formed? You know, it's a waterfall. You can see it. And you can start talking about erosion. Could talk about vertical erosion. Remember that key term, we want to make something even better via hydraulic action. I mean, erosion on its own is fine, but if you want the higher grades, you can do this. And you might think, oh, I can't remember how to explain it. I do know there's hard rock on top of soft rock. I'll draw it then. So, hard rock. Soft rock. You get the idea? You get a couple of marks for that because you've said what's happened and you've shown hard rock and soft rock. So you've got an understanding of the process. And remember the idea of a shopping list. You want to do it in order. So hard rock, soft rock. The next picture could show this because it's been undercut. And then the final picture might show the original waterfall position and the fact that it's moved back. We've got a plunge pool. Alright. You could also potentially, it's not just the river, is it? All of this, it will be affected by weathering also. Alright. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there, but you get an idea. These are some strategies that you can use when working with your exam papers. Bye bye.